Hi everyone, Abby here, and welcome back to my channel, AbbyBCruising, or welcome if you're new. Here on this channel, I do cruise reviews and traveling content. Now today, I'm going to be reviewing Royal Caribbean's Enchantment of the Seas cruise ship, a ship I recently got off of. I did a 5-night sailing out of Tampa, Florida, and this is one of Royal Caribbean's oldest, smallest cruise ships. Today, I'm going to go over the good and the bad, because trust me, there is some bad on this cruise ship. I'm going to be talking about food, price, entertainment, activities, the rooms, customer service, and more. But before I get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed so you can stay tuned to all my new videos dropping monthly and so you can help the channel grow. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers, guys, on this new channel here, and we recently hit 100, so thank you guys so much for that. Really appreciate all of you who have subscribed, and to my viewers who are not subscribed yet, come on and join the family. So this was a 5-night sailing out of Tampa, Florida. It left out of Port Tampa Bay, and this was a Mexico cruise. Stopped at 2 different locations in Mexico and had 3 sea days. It went to Puerto Costa Maya, Mexico, and Cozumel, Mexico. So as we arrived at Port Tampa Bay, there was a lot of traffic. So my recommendation would be to you to definitely leave early, allow enough time to get there. Now, as we approached the cruise port, we got off, we gave our large luggages to the staff that was out there. Make sure your luggages are tagged, guys, before you hand that to them. What I like to do is I use these little things here. So basically it's this little plastic sleeve where you go ahead and you put your printout that Royal Caribbean gives you in here. It comes with this little thing, slides right through, and then you kind of just hook this onto your suitcase. If you're interested in picking them up, I'll put a link in the description below for you. I got mine off Amazon. I think it was like a pack of 4 for under like $10. So if you don't have one of these handy, make sure you bring a stapler so you can staple it on there, or some tape. Cruise line is going to deliver your bag directly to in front of your room later on that day in the cruise. And I went inside. We were supposed to arrive at 11. We were there about 10 minutes early. They directed us to the 11 o'clock line. There was a line of about maybe 10 people in front of us. Nothing crazy, but it was moving kind of slow. Once we went to the front of the line, they scanned our set sail pass, which make sure you have that printed with you or have a screenshot on your phone, something like that, especially if you are flying in internationally, because if you don't have internet, it could be an issue. So you're gonna show that, and you're gonna show your ID. So if you're a United States citizen, you could show a passport or a driver's license. If you are coming in from, international, you need to show a passport or a visa, something like that. After that, we went through some scanners that scanned our small bags. After that, we were sectioned off to a kind of area to sit. What I didn't like is that there was a lot of people sat down. It was 11 o'clock that time. The earliest boarding time was 10:30, I believe, for the sailing, so I don't know why they didn't let people on. Around 11:05, 11:10, they started letting people on. And they were kind of letting you on row by row. So while it was organized, I'm not saying it wasn't, it was just a very slow process. Once I actually got on the cruise ship, you have to watch a safety video, listening to a sample alarm sound, and you're looking to see where your evacuation area is on the ship. So we did that. We went ahead and ticked off our names with the staff there, and then we were ready to go. And of course, the first thing you want to do when you get on a cruise is eat some food. Enchantment of the Seas, being a Vision class cruise ship, is quite small. And with this small size, they're only able to fit, a few different types of dining venues and food options on here. Now, I can't say that there's gonna be something for everybody on this ship that everybody's gonna love, but they did have a good amount of food options that, I think most people would enjoy. Now, there's one specialty dining option that is paid, and there's a few options that are free or complimentary included in your cruise fare. Now, when it comes to the complimentary things, one option for food is the Windjammer, which is the onboard buffet, open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They have a variety of different foods from, classic American foods. There's Indian food, French food, Italian food, Caribbean food, and more. And they do change up the food daily basis, so you're not gonna get super bored of eating the exact same thing every day. So another option for food is the main dining room. Now, the main dining room is where you're gonna go for that classic fine dining experience where you sit down and they bring you 3 different courses of meals. You got your first course, which is your entrees, you got your main, and you have a dessert that they're gonna bring to you. I really like the ambiance on the main dining room. It's just, there's a beautiful big chandelier, there's glass windows everywhere so you can see the sea. It's just really nice environment to be in to have a nice meal. Now, the main dining room was my personal favorite. I do have dietary restrictions. I have celiac disease, I need to eat gluten-free. I'm also vegetarian, and I found that they were the best for going to get food because they had the most variety of things I can get, and they made the food the fastest for me, and it was just kind of easy to order. Now, the main dining room, the food would change every single day, and there's different options. And the main dining room was open for dinner every day. It was open for breakfast or brunch, and sometimes it was open for lunch. So it kind of fluctuated on the schedule of when they were open. Another option for food is they had a park cafe, a little kind of restaurant snuck into the solarium area on the ship, which is the adults only pool area on Enchantment of the Seas. So there they had a little place where you can get pizzas made. They had little sandwiches and other kind of grab and go things and some drinks. Another option you had was the Cafe Latitudes. So that's an area where you can go to get coffee, tea, and a bunch of different desserts as well. And they had one specialty restaurant, which was Chops Grill, which is an onboard steakhouse. So if you're a steak lover, that could be a great option for you. And if you find this video helpful so far, please go ahead and smash that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it. All right, guys, so when it came to the food on this cruise ship, overall, I'd say it was average. There were some things that I thought were great. There were some things that were honestly awful. So the quality control was kind of very hit or miss when it came to the food. I definitely found it to be very limiting on the amount of food options that they did have on board. Coupled with me having dietary restriction, it really limited what I could eat. Now, when it comes to the food, I'm gonna go more in depth on the food in a separate review, just covering food on Enchantment of the Seas. So if you're interested in that, make sure to stay tuned for that video dropping soon, and subscribe with your post notification bell turned on so you don't miss that video when it drops. All right, guys, so now I'm gonna talk about the demographic on board. Now, when it comes to Enchantment of the Seas, there's definitely draws in an older crowd. And that's something I was expecting because, you know, it's a smaller ship and it's gonna have all the bells and whistles of the new ships. And being smaller, it's easier to navigate around. So when it comes to the demographic, I would say at least 50% of the passengers on the sailing when I was on there were seniors. Now, when I say, you know, seniors, I'm just talking about the technical term of 65 or older. So definitely a majority of an older crowd. Now for me, not an issue at all. I mean, I don't mind hanging out with people older than me. In addition to that, I would say there was around 30% couples. Couples in their 20s to 50s made up a big chunk of that as well. And then after that, there were some families. Now, there was a good amount of parents or like newer parents with like babies and toddlers, and there was some families with teens, but I did not see many of children that were like tweens or younger, you know, under 10. And in general, there was not that many kids. And I did see some solo travelers as well. Now, when it came to the races on board, the majority was Caucasian or white. I would say at least like 60% was that. And then there was kind of a mix, I'd say an equal mix of Black, Hispanic, Asian, and other for the rest of the races on board. Now, when it came to the nationalities, I'd say it was predominantly American. Everyone I talked to, almost like, I'd say like 75% was American. Now, after that, it was kind of a mix of Canadians and then Europeans. I actually met a lot of people from the UK, which was pretty cool. So that was the nationalities there. So definitely kind of a mix on this cruise ship. Now, don't let the ages fool you. The people who were older were having fun, just like people who were younger. Like, everybody was interacting well together. I didn't really see like a divide there. One thing I found was like they were still partying. Like, you'd see like people dancing, going out to the clubs and stuff. So I did ask about the capacity of the ship, and I was told that they were running around 90% capacity. So that's a little bit under 2,000 people. So honestly, 2,000 people sounds like a lot, but in terms of cruise ships, it's really not that many. And people are kind of spread out through the ship doing their own things. So I didn't find it too bad in terms of the amount of people that were on the ship. And the only thing that I found was that there was a wait for elevators a lot. Now, I don't accompany that to the size of the ship. I accompany it to, you know, the demographic. More people are probably going to want to take the elevators than take the stairs, especially when they, you know, are older. Yeah, so that's kind of the demographic, nationalities, all of that stuff. That's something that I like to talk about in my reviews. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about it, but some people do, you know, care about that when they're going on vacation. So it's something I did want to mention. So there was the casino where you can go to, you know, gamble. There was different tournaments in the casino as well, and different classes in the casino, like teaching you how to play different games. There was also bingo. So if you're someone who likes to play bingo, they had that there. There were dance classes, so free dance classes where people would kind of show you how to do choreographed dances. And I thought that was really fun. And I saw people of all ages, participating in that. There was also like scavenger hunts, and there was daily trivia on different types of categories. There was also a different contest between passengers, say like who could sing the best or what comes next in the song. There was like dance competitions between passengers. And there was this little thing where I honestly don't know what it was. I was just walking by and kind of took part of it, but it was like there was different stations set up, and you would have to learn how to like fold a towel animal, or you'd have to learn how to do something else that the crew does. Like it was kind of just like playing the crew. You would basically do one of the activities and you got a little ballot, and then they did a raffle. There was a good amount of raffles, like almost daily.
Next one, we have one more. And the lucky winner has green tickets. Green ticket this time.
There's also, of course, the pool activities. You can go in the pool, you can go in the hot tub, sunbathing. They did have a general pool for kind of all ages. They had a very tiny kind of kid. It wasn't even a pool. It was like this like fountain thing where like water would squirt out for like the little babies and the toddlers. And they had a adults only solarium where there was a pool and there was a hot tub in there as well. There's also art auctions that did happen throughout the sailing as well. So if you just want to get free champagne, art auctions are a great place that you can do that. That's always a tip I like to give people if you want free alcohol. Then I find it really interesting to see the different pieces of art. I do love art myself. And there's also kind of kids activities. So if you are bringing kids on board, whether they are teenagers, whether they're little babies, or they are tweens or kind of younger, they do have onboard kind of kids club, teen lounge, stuff like that for them to go to. So as I did mention, I saw a couple of them. There wasn't a huge amount. They did have things for them to do, like different video games, scavenger hunt, different challenges. There was also like art activities, like bracelet making, things like that. So there's different activities that the staff did have on board for, the kids and the teens to keep them entertained. And if you are going on this sailing with babies, you can drop your little ones off at the nursery, but keep in mind that the nursery is not free. There is a small fee that goes towards that. But if you're someone, maybe a couple, and you want to have like dinner together without, caring for the baby just for a bit, or if you want to leave them and maybe watch a movie or whatever, you can bring them to the nursery. So there was a decent amount of activities, but I did find that they did get a bit repetitive for me personally. So when it comes to the entertainment, for me, entertainment is different from activities, because activities for me is something that you're kind of actively participating in doing, where entertainment for me is something that you're watching, sitting, enjoying. So for the entertainment on this ship, there were a lot of musicians. So there were people who were singers, some of them were just singing solo with tracks, some of them were singing with bands. There's a lot of cover bands too, play different ages of music. A lot of it was kind of like oldies, if you will. There was a pianist. There were really talented musicians and bands on this ship. So if you do like to listen to good music, that's an option for you. So in addition to that, there was a comedy show. Comedian wasn't really funny to me, but everyone has different senses of humor. There was a love and marriage game show, which is a Royal Caribbean classic. They pull out people from the audience of different marriage lengths, from like newlywed to people married, just a couple of years, people married for decades, and they quiz them, and it's always a fun time. I didn't get to watch that this time, which is disappointing because something I always usually get to go to, but they had that too. They did have some shows. It wasn't a Broadway show, but it was like a Royal Caribbean type of show.
Just kissed a girl named Maria. We said go for daddy, spread the picture on the wider street, and the voice said daddy is a million.
They did have some great actors there as well. In addition to that, there was also a movie that played, usually poolside daily, for people to watch. And I will say that all of the musicians I saw were really talented and really good. But one thing I noticed is that the music was just always really loud. Now, I don't know if that was like an issue with the speakers or if they're just doing that because of like the older audience. Maybe they think they couldn't hear as well. I don't know, but it was very loud. So I did find myself, usually I like to sit in the front and watch things. I did find myself having to like step back a little bit at times just because it was really loud. All right guys, so when it comes to the staterooms on Enchantment of the Seas, there are different options you could choose from. There's interior stateroom, which, you know, no windows. There's ocean view, which has a window. There's a balcony, which had a view to the ocean. And there is a suite of different, you know, sizes and categories there. So I did choose an ocean view cabin for this sailing. When I was booking this, the balconies were really expensive and I was looking for like a cheap, affordable cruise, which this was. I'll go over pricing soon. But when I was booking it, the ocean view was actually cheaper than the interior for whatever reason at that time. So we ended up booking an ocean view and I had a really good view to, you know, outside looking at the sea. It wasn't obstructed or anything. And I would say the location of my cabin was very quiet. It was close to the elevators. The cabin, it didn't have a mini fridge, which to me was a bummer because pretty much all of the newer ships nowadays have a mini fridge where you can go and maybe store a snack in, or you can put some water bottles or drinks in or whatever to keep them cool. They didn't have that here, so yeah, not the best. But overall, I did find was a good size for 2 people for sure. If you guys are interested in the room and you want to know exactly what the room I stayed in, check out my room tour of Enchantment of the Seas, which you can find coming up at the top right, also linked in the description below for you to check out when you're done watching this. Now, some things I noticed about the stateroom was that it definitely looked very dated. And the carpet looked kind of run down. And I noticed that the bathrooms were kind of run down and they had a shower curtain, which I always hate. Like, who wants a shower curtain, like clinging to them, touching them when they're showering? No, not me. So that's something I didn't like to see.
It has like a sensor nightlight that comes on with motion.
It actually had a good amount of storage space for our suitcases and stuff like that, but definitely it's showing its age. When they did rejuvenate the ship, they didn't do anything to the cabins, which I don't get that, but that's what they did.
And unfortunately, again, I got a room attendant who was not the best. He was a very nice gentleman, but he was very forgetful. We'd ask for, you know, extra towels or sheets, he'd forget to bring them. And what made me the most annoyed was that on the first night when I went to, you know, get into bed, we saw this really long hair in the bed and it was kind of gross. I think he didn't even change the sheets from the last guest. So we pointed it out to him. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll change it. We come back after dinner a couple hours later, the bed was made again, but literally he didn't change the sheets. The hair was in the exact same spot. I was just very frustrated with him. He seemed to be cutting corners a lot and he would forget to like pick up, you know, plates in the room or cups and stuff. So not the best experience there, having someone who's forgetful and, you know, not very efficient at cleaning. So on this cruise ship, there was a fitness center and a spa. So if you're someone who you want to go to the spa and maybe get some spa treatments like a facial or do your nails or do a pedicure, do your hair, get a haircut, whatever you want to do, they have a spa on board for you. Now, I wouldn't really recommend doing that because they're super expensive compared to on land, but they do have that available. And there is a gym on board too. There are certain hours that it's open, it's not 24/7, but the hours were like really good. I believe it was like 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., something like that. So if you're somebody who likes to work out early or later, you have the option. And they did have a good amount of athletic, you know, equipment in there when it comes to machines, like bike machines, treadmill, different types of weightlifting machines and actual weights. And they had an area where if you wanted to kind of stretch, do yoga, stuff like that. They also did have daily fitness classes. Some of them are paid, some are free. And there was good air conditioning there as well. So the gym is always available if you're someone who does like to work out when you are on a cruise to maybe combat some of that food, because I know a lot of us do eat a lot of food when we're on a cruise ships. And I personally do like to go to the gym at least a couple times when I am cruising, and I actually did enjoy the gym. It was usually quiet when I went in, so I personally like that, you know, not competing for machines or anything. It didn't really look like it was like kind of super old and aging. Maybe that's because they rejuvenated it, or maybe it's because a lot of people don't work out on cruises. But for whatever reason, I did think that, you know, the equipment there and everything was pretty nice as it was holding up. All right, guys, so another thing I want to talk about is the Wi-Fi or the internet on this ship.
I was kind of worried about getting internet because I was thinking that it would be pretty bad because the ship is so old, but it was surprisingly good. Now I did get one device, stream and surf package for the cruise. I did get mine on sale before the sailing, so I did save a little bit, but it was still quite expensive. It did work really well. Didn't really have any issues watching videos or surfing the web. I didn't even have any issues like buffering if I was watching a 1080p resolution video, but if it was like 2K or 4K, I did find it would kind of buffer for a little bit before loading. So for me, I just kind of turned it down to 1080 because I don't really care that much, but that's something I did want to mention. But for general kind of web surfing, sending emails, stuff like that, it did work very well. The only downside for me is the upload time, because I was trying to upload, YouTube video, was so slow. Like it literally took 4.5 hours to upload an 8-minute video. That was definitely a bummer for me, someone who does do YouTube video uploads, but I feel like the average person is not uploading videos, so that's probably not an issue for most of you. All right guys, so another thing I want to talk about is the cleanliness on board. On Enchantment of the Seas, I did find it was a pretty clean cruise ship. There were always staff around cleaning, vacuuming or dusting or sweeping or cleaning bathrooms, something, like all the time. So I did find it to be pretty clean. Staff were really good about picking up, like plates and cups people leave around the ship, because passengers do that. They'll just drink something and like leave it on the floor. But anyways, they were really good at cleaning up. While the ship did show its age, there were spots that were rusty and there was kind of paint sometimes in some areas that was like chipping and things like that. The actual ship was pretty clean. I didn't really find anything that was like super dusty anywhere, or anything that was like a bunch of food or crumbs on the floors. Like it was clean. I am happy with the cleanliness on board for sure. And something that I did notice is that there were not a lot of hand cleaning stations or like full out sinks on board. They did have a couple of like the hand sanitizers, but they didn't really have much sinks other than the bathrooms and just a few select areas. So I would have loved to see more kind of physical water and soap to wash my hands. I prefer that to hand sanitizer. Now, the customer service on the ship was by and large great. I'd say 95% of everyone I spoke to and kind of just in general was fantastic. They would help me answer any questions I had, any concerns when it came to, billing, or when, shore excursions, any questions I had about anything. They answered them really great at the customer service desk. And there was an issue with the app not working for my husband for whatever reason. He wasn't able to get connected to like the Wi-Fi chat thing. So they were able to help us with that too, which was really great. So I really like the service at the customer service desk, and the staff on the ship, like, were always so nice. They always say hi to you when you come by, ask if you need anything. The people in the dining venues were always really nice as well, and just helpful. Now for me, there was a few people who were not great, most of them in the main dining room. Now, the people in the main dining room was my waiter, and there was like I think it was a head waiter. They were not great. They were honestly so annoying. So when we were eating in the main dining room, they would constantly ask us, oh, just remember like our service when you're filling out the survey at the end of the cruise, just remember to fill out the survey positively. It's so important, blah, blah, blah. I will say they brought down my rating for sure. Yeah, that was unprecedented for me. I've never had anybody just badging me for a survey. I kid you guys not. On the first night when I sat down in the main dining room, before I even got any food, before even asking like our names, before even asking for our order, he didn't even ask me for like my eating restrictions or anything. He literally said, hi, my name is so-and-so. Here are the menus. Please remember to rate me positively in the survey. And I was like, what? Like, we didn't even get any food. You didn't ask for my name. You didn't ask for anything. He was asking about a survey. No, that was bad. And I also found that when we were exiting the ship, the staff there, I found that some of them were kind of grumpy and just weren't in a good mood. Now, people could have just having an off day. I will give them that. But it wasn't a pleasant experience for me. So I did notice that as well when we were going to Cozumel in particular. That wasn't a great experience, having people be kind of rude and be like, hurry up, you gotta go, and da da da. And in the main dining room, there were some great people too, I'm not gonna lie. The guy who did our drinks, that gentleman was fantastic. He was always on it. He was always making sure, like checking on us, making sure we had what we wanted, if we wanted more drinks, anything like that, he was great. Other than that kind of few one-offs, I'd say most of it was excellent. Like I said, like 95% of the people that I interacted with, the service was fantastic. It was just that kind of small 5% that just, because negative experiences do kind of, sadly but truly, they do kind of impact the positive ones a lot more. So Enchantment of the Seas came out in 1997. So it's a pretty old cruise ship. Now, because it's an older cruise ship, one of the benefits is that you can get it for a pretty affordable price point. cost that I paid for this cruise for a ocean view cabin, $642 Canadian, or approximately $465 American, including taxes and fees, for this 5-night sailing on Enchantment of the Seas. So for me, I think it's a really good value, you know, for the cruise ship that we're going on, for a 5-night sailing, you know, unlimited food, entertainment, all of that included in that cruise fare. So just to give you guys an example, for going on a 6-night sailing as of recording, if I wanted to go on Icon of the Seas, one of the biggest cruise ships, it literally cost me $2,150 Canadian per person for a 6-night sailing. So in comparison, you guys might be like, maybe I'm gonna go on Enchantment and save some money, because you do save a lot of money there. But just keep in mind, with the savings, you are getting a drawback in the amount of entertainment, activities, and food options on this ship. All right, guys, so I did want to talk about some general pros. One pro of Enchantment of the Seas is that you're gonna get it for a great price. Now, I did just talk about price points, but you can get this cruise so cheap when it comes to comparing, you know, Enchantment of the Seas to other cruise ships and other cruise ship classes. So that's something I like, is that you can get a very affordable cruise, you know, on the ship. Another pro for me is that this ship is easy to navigate. You can get from one side to the other in about 5 minutes flat, and it's just very easy to find things. If you're looking for the theater, if you're looking for the main dining room, if you're looking for the casino, if you're looking for anything, it's just really easy to find things, and they have maps all over. And I really like that it was easy to navigate, because a lot of times on some of the bigger ships, I honestly need to take like a full day, sometimes 2, to figure out where things are. And sometimes you get lost and you have to kind of look at the maps all the time, but this time I think is a definite pro about Enchantment of the Seas. Especially if you're someone who has more mobility issues or you don't want to walk a lot, this is really easy for you to get from one area to the other of the ship. Another pro for me is that there were minimal lines on this cruise ship. So if you were going into a show, like to watch a musician or a comedian or something, there were very minimal lines. Or if you were in, you know, the Windjammer waiting to get food, wherever you were, there was very minimal lines on the ship. So that's something that I definitely find a pro, because I hate waiting in lines. It's something I find so annoying. The only area where I really saw like lines was waiting for elevators. And there was a couple of lines to get off of the cruise ship. Another thing I wanted to mention is that a lot of the time Royal Caribbean will give some passengers the chance to bid for higher stateroom category, especially if the cruise is not at full capacity. Now, we were kind of happy with the location of our cabin, so I didn't bid, but I heard a lot of people won their bids. So some people got to go from like an interior to a balcony to a suite and stuff like that for a pretty good price point. So that's something that you probably could get a chance of, because chances are these cruise ships are not going to fill up crazy like, you know, Symphony of the Seas or like Icon, Star or something would. So you do have a higher chance at winning bids if you do get the emails for that. Now, another pro for me about this cruise ship is that there are sea views everywhere. So if you're someone who you just want to look out at the ocean and just relax, there are sea views everywhere. That's something I find a huge positive, because I love looking out at the water and just being around the water. It just brings me calm. I really like that there are sea views all around the ship, and they're really easy to find. Whether you're going to the schooner bar, for example, which has like floor to ceiling windows all around of the sea, even in the main dining room, there are windows everywhere, or just even areas with just open sea with fresh air you can go to. And I really like that. That's something I found that has been taken away from the new cruise ships, which they like now just don't really show you the sea much anymore. Another pro for me is that it's really easy to find seating. So if I was going to look to, you know, go to the pool deck or the solarium, or if I was going to go to the Windjammer or something like that, I always found it easy to find a seat. Even just seats around like in bars or wherever on the ship, I never really found myself searching for a seat. It's just easy to find seats. So that's something that I really did like about this cruise ship. So there definitely were some cons on this cruise ship. Now, the first one for me was the motion. So I did find that there were times where the ship was very kind of rocky, you know, swaying back and forth, a lot of motion. I'm someone who I do get seasickness easily, and I did have to find myself taking some seasickness pills. Now, they were mostly on the sea days in the afternoon to night, and I don't know why it is. Maybe it was the ship was moving faster, or maybe just the waves, whatever, but it was pretty rocky. And there was literally, I think there was like rails on the walls in between the cabins as well, which people would be grabbing onto so they don't fall over. So it got pretty rocky, and I think it's because the ship is so small you could really feel it like noticeably. So that happened 2 nights on the sailing. If you have bad seasickness, it could be an issue for you. For me, I did find issues for those 2 nights. The other days were fine when we were moving and stuff. So another con for me, which was like, I don't know what they were thinking, but they had the crew working at the worst times on things that they shouldn't have been working on. So they had people literally painting the walls and painting like wood and things like that right when passengers are getting ready to go into dinner. So like around maybe 5, 7. So everyone's smelling the paint and it's strong. I don't know why they decided to do that at like peak times when like people are going to eat. That was really dumb, but that happened. Another con for me is the minimal activities. I'm someone who I'm a pretty laid back cruiser. I don't mind not having a bunch of activities, but that's definitely, I think, a con that a lot of people would notice. They were pretty repetitive. You'd see the same things like a couple of times throughout the cruise. I think there's other things they could have thrown in. And one caveat I had was that the Love and Marriage game show was at the same time as bingo. For me, I like bingo a bit more, a chance to win some money, so I did go for bingo instead. But I found that a lot of things did start earlier. The Love and Marriage game show, that show they did at 11:30 a.m., which I have never seen that happen that early. That's usually like late night, like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. start. So I think they did that maybe because of the older audience on the ship, but I did find that a little bit weird. And there's a lot of things like that. I found a lot of activities were kind of earlier in the day versus later. Every other cruise I've been on, Love and Marriage game show was a late night thing, maybe like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock start. That was one thing that I didn't like, and I get maybe they did that because of the older audience on the cruise ship, but I just thought that was really bad planning, and I don't get why they did that in the middle of the day when it's more of kind of like a late night adult type of thing. And there was only one day of bingo, which I have an issue with because I like bingo, and I don't know why they did that. But anyways, the activities for me, I wish there was more variety of them and that they planned things better. Another con for me was that the casino was very, very smoky. So if you are someone who is not a smoker, good luck. Now, I am not a smoker. I literally went in there, had to leave. It was bad. The smoking section and a non-smoking section, but even people smoking on this side, it would draft over. So it was really smoky. So the ventilation in the casino didn't work very well. I don't know if it's because the ship is old or because they had a lot of people in a small area gambling and smoking, but it was just always very smoky in there. And the smoke was kind of wafting out of the casino into the centrum. So it was not great for me as someone who was not a smoker. And another con for me, and one that was really annoying that I kind of already mentioned, the staff in the main dining room constantly asked me to leave a positive review in their surveys. The people in the main dining room was my waiter, and there was like I think it was a head waiter. They were not great, and they kind of brought my cruise down. So when we were eating in the main dining room, they would constantly ask us, oh, just remember like our service when you're filling out the survey at the end of the cruise, just remember to fill out the survey positively. It's so important, blah, blah, blah. They would say this every single day, every time I saw them. Walk by, see them on the ship, remember the survey, remember the survey. After, you go on a cruise, Royal Caribbean will send you a survey and say, how was your cruise? And you have to answer questions. They were constantly like, leave us a positive review, 10 stars, like give us a good rating. I'm not kidding you guys. There was one night where they asked us 4 times. 3 times from our waiter and 1 time from a head waiter who asked us. And I don't know why they kept doing that every single day. And it's not even just us. I heard them asking other people too. Yeah, it was really annoying. I'm not gonna lie. I've never had that happen to me on another cruise. Usually on a cruise, on the last night, the main dining room staff, maybe in the Windjammer staff, just kind of staff might say, hey, when you get home, you're gonna get a survey. I would really appreciate it if you'd fill it out and let us know how we're doing. If there's anything I can do to improve my service, whatever, let me know, something like that. But they're not supposed to say, hey, give me a positive review, give me 10 stars. And they're not supposed to remind you every single day. Like, it was so annoying, guys. And he honestly, on top of that, didn't even give good service. So that made it even worse. And the last con for me is that the staff kept pushing upgrades like heavily. They'd be like, oh, make sure you get your internet packages, make sure you get internet packages. I already got one. I told them that. Okay. Do you want to get one? So my husband, he's just like, yeah, no. And they kept trying to push beverage packages. And then they also kept trying to push the specialty dining, which they only had one dining option. I'm a vegetarian. I'm not going to eat in a steakhouse with no vegetarian things. But we got asked like every single day, multiple times, and it was really annoying. Now, sometimes you're gonna get asked for, upselling things like that, but I feel like they did it a lot on the ship. And it's like when you have such minimal options to promote, and you're just saying the same thing every day to the same people, which, hey, I know they have to recognize people because it's a small ship, there's not that many people. It's something I found annoying as well. So this cruise ship did have 2 ports of call in Mexico. We had Puerto Costa Maya, Mexico. I like going to Mexico. I've gone to Mexico a lot. I've gone to resorts there. I've gone on cruise ships a lot. I love the food. I like the shopping, and I like the beaches. They don't have a bunch of rocks everywhere, and the people there are pretty nice.
They're not doing anything.
And they do want to sell you stuff, but they're not overly aggressive about it like some other places I've been to. Now, I found this port of call was great. They had some really good shopping. I did find myself some good vanilla. My husband got some hot sauce. That was kind of our goal for this cruise because we ran out from the last cruise. But I love to get my vanilla in Mexico. I buy enough to stock up for a year or so in between me going to another cruise. I just really like the Mexican vanilla. It's just potent, it tastes good, and it lasts a long time. It's good quality. We got some souvenirs, some shirts and stuff, and we did go to the beach, and it was nice. And one thing I like about the 2 Mexico ports of call is that they both have a lot of shopping literally directly right off the cruise ship. So you don't have to go venture into Mexico if you don't want to. But if you do want to experience, more of the local cuisine, stuff like that, it's very easy to kind of get cabs. Even you could take public transit like the bus if you are adventurous enough or, to do that. So when it comes to Cozumel, Mexico, we once again did some shopping. I didn't go to the beach again. This time we kind of just did some sightseeing and walked around and did some shopping and tried some food, stuff like that. It was a really good time. The weather was great both days, which was fantastic as well. And if you like rum cake, this shop here has fantastic rum cake. Now for me, I am gluten-free now, so I can't eat them anymore, sadly. But before I got my celiac diagnosis, I'm telling you guys, I would eat those all the time. They're fantastic, and they make great gifts to take home for friends and family. One thing that I find helpful about Royal Caribbean is the cruise ship holds these kind of shopping advice, seminars or presentations to help you figure out where you can get the best deals. So I have still my paperwork here, and then I got a bunch of different coupons. And what I really like is the map. So they give you a map of the pier, and it helps you get around, it helps you find out which store is where. And there's even some more here of just downtown Cozumel. If you wanted to just go into Cozumel, they give you some main attractions there. So that's something that I really like that Royal Caribbean does provide. Yeah, that's something I did find helpful and did want to just show you guys real quick. And someone's come to pay you guys a visit. Say hi. All right, guys, so when it comes to the disembarkation, which is, getting off this cruise ship, you have 2 options there. You can either self-disembark, which is you're gonna take your big luggages, your small luggages, all off the ship yourself. Or you can choose to have the cruise ship take your big luggages off the ship for you, and it will meet you outside, at the port. And if you choose that option, they're gonna automatically assign you a time, and that's the time that you're gonna have to basically get off the ship. So I did opt to do self-disembarkation. I did this because we had a flight to catch that day. And when you self-disembark, they are the first people who got off the cruise ship because you get to go off at the earliest time. After that, they're gonna be calling, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, this color, because they kind of categorize the colors and the times for other people who are not self-disembarking. Getting off the ship on Enchantment was a bit confusing. When we actually got to the area where we were supposed to disembark, they were still setting up lanes to get people off of the ship. They were late, so that made it a bit confusing out of where we stand, because people were waiting in a line to get off, but the lines were kind of all over the place, so it was a bit of a mess. There was long line of people. There was maybe 80 people waiting in line to get off the ship, the early risers, the self-disembarkators, and we were just waiting there for 15-20 minutes with no movement. But once we did kind of get the ball rolling, we just had to roll our suitcases kind of through the certain area, and you had to have your passport out, your C-Pass card. They were kind of checking things. So then finally, they let us get off the ship. And so there was a lot of a wait for the elevator to kind of
get you from the top of the cruise port to the bottom floor to get off. I'd say the embarkation process probably took around like 40 minutes to get off of the ship. So it was not the smoothest, fastest experience. It was a little bit messy, but we got off the ship, so I'm not gonna complain. So considering the price of the cruise, the food, the entertainment, the customer service, the activities, and more, I would go ahead and give Enchantment of the Seas a 6.1 out of 10. I definitely do give it a thumbs up. Now, if you guys are looking to go on Royal Caribbean's Enchantment of the Seas cruise ship here, I've gone ahead and left a link down in the description for you to use. Now, if you guys have ever been on Enchantment of the Seas, let me know your experience in the comments below. And if you've never been and you're planning to, or if you've never cruised before, let me know if you want to try out the ship or if you were like, nope, I am not doing it. Let me know in the comments below. I'm interested to hear what you guys do have to say. I will say with full transparency, Enchantment of the Seas was my worst cruise yet that I've been on, and I've been cruising for over a decade. So while it's the worst cruise I've been on, it's not the worst vacation I've been on. Trust me, there have been some resorts where I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to leave on day one. So while it was the worst cruise I've been on, it was a cruise. So honestly, it's still not that bad. And if you're someone looking for a party cruise, this is not the cruise for you. If you're someone looking for more of a relaxed, more affordable, classic cruise experience, this is probably a great option for you. It was kind of nice vibes. Now, I do have some more cruises booked for this year, for next year, and the year after. So you guys are going to be seeing a lot more cruise content and reviews from me. Now, I'm pretty loyal to Royal, especially because I really want to reach Diamond, and I'm super close to reaching Diamond. You're going to be seeing some more Royal Caribbean cruise reviews from me. So once I hit Diamond, I'm honestly open to checking out other cruise lines. Just let me know which cruise line you want me to check out, or any cruise ship in particular, in the comments below as well.
Now, if you finish watching this review and you're thinking that Enchantment of the Seas is maybe not for you, maybe it's the food, not a lot of options, maybe it's too small, not enough activities, and you just want to check out a larger cruise ship, then you might want to check out an Oasis class ship. Something like Royal Caribbean Symphony of the Seas, which I've done a full review on. Find it linked in the description below. That's all I have for today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.